The rain had not stopped for 3 days. It rolled across the narrow countryside roads like silver smoke, turning the entire town into a gray watercolor painting. Most people hated weather like this, but Elena Ward loved it. Rain made the world quieter, and after everything she'd been through, quiet was the only thing she still trusted. She tightened both hands around the steering wheel as her old sedan crawled up the muddy hill toward the property she had impulsively purchased only 2 weeks earlier. A house for pennies. That's what the newspaper ad had said. Most buyers thought it was a joke. Others said the place was cursed. Elena didn't care. When you're 34, drowning in debt, recently divorced, and sleeping on your cousin's couch while pretending your life isn't collapsing, you stop believing in curses. You start believing in bargains. The house appeared through the fog slowly. Tall, crooked, massive. Its black windows looked like empty eyes staring directly at her. The estate sat alone at the edge of Hollow Creek, surrounded by dead trees and rusted fencing swallowed by weeds. Even from inside the car, Elena could smell wet wood and old stone. A shiver ran through her. Not fear, something stranger. Recognition, as if she had seen the place before. But that was impossible. She turned off the engine. Silence. Only the rain tapping against the roof. "Elena," she whispered to herself, "you bought a nightmare." Then she laughed, because nightmares were still cheaper than rent. The front door barely opened. She had to slam her shoulder into it 3 times before the swollen would finally give way with a loud crack. Dust exploded into the air. The smell inside was ancient. Rotting wallpaper, wet timber, mold, forgotten years. Elena stepped carefully into the foyer, flashlight trembling slightly in her grip. The house was enormous inside, far bigger than the photos online had shown. A grand staircase curved upward into darkness. Long hallways disappeared into shadows. Sheet-covered furniture sat like silent ghosts. Rainwater dripped somewhere deeper inside the walls. Drip, drip, drip. "Perfect," she muttered sarcastically. Her voice echoed back strangely. The realtor had told her almost nothing, only that the previous owner died without family. No heirs, no claims. No one wanted the property afterward, which explained the price. But as Elena stood there staring into the darkness, she realized something strange. The house didn't feel abandoned. It felt paused, like someone had walked out for 5 minutes and never returned. By sunset, Elena had unpacked exactly 3 boxes before losing motivation entirely. The electricity worked only in half the rooms. The kitchen sink leaked. One upstairs window refused to close. And every floorboard sounded like it was screaming beneath her weight. Still, it was hers. For the first time in years, something belonged to her again. Not rented, not borrowed, not shared with a husband who eventually replaced love with silence. She sat cross-legged on the dusty living room floor, eating cold soup straight from the tin. Outside, thunder rolled across the valley. Inside, the house creaked constantly, almost rhythmically, like breathing. Elena tried not to think about it. Instead, she opened the old folder the realtor had given her. Inside were faded property records, receipts, tax papers. A single photograph slipped free and landed on the floor. Elena picked it up carefully. The image showed the house decades earlier, but something caught her attention instantly. There was a woman standing beside the front porch. Tall, dark-haired, wearing a long cream coat, and she looked almost exactly like Elena. Elena stared at the photo for a long time, then laughed nervously. "Okay, that's weird." She flipped the image over. One sentence was written on the back in faded ink. "If you find it, finish it." A cold pulse moved through her chest. What does that even mean? Lightning flashed outside. For half a second, the entire room illuminated white, and Elena nearly dropped the photograph, because she could have sworn someone was standing at the top of the staircase, watching her. The darkness swallowed the figure before she could focus. Silence returned. Elena slowly stood. "Hello?" Nothing answered, only the storm. She grabbed the flashlight and pointed it toward the staircase. Empty. Just shadows. "You're tired," she whispered. Tired people imagine things. Still, she locked her bedroom door that night. Sleep didn't come easily. The wind clawed at the windows endlessly. Pipes groaned inside the walls. And sometime after midnight, she heard it, a loud thud, directly downstairs. Elena's eyes snapped open. She sat upright immediately. Another sound followed, dragging, slow, heavy, across the floor. Her heartbeat doubled. Someone was inside the house. She reached for the flashlight beside the bed and climbed out carefully. The wooden floor felt freezing beneath her feet. Another drag echoed below. Then silence. Elena swallowed hard. Every instinct told her to stay upstairs. But another part of her, the stubborn part that survived divorce, bankruptcy, and humiliation, refused to be afraid in her own house. She opened the bedroom door slowly. The hallway beyond was dark. Moonlight spilled weakly through cracked windows. Step by step, she moved toward the staircase. Every creak sounded deafening. Halfway down, she stopped. The living room was visible from there. Nothing moved. No intruder. No shadow. But one thing had changed. The photograph she'd left on the floor was gone. Elena frowned. She searched the room carefully with her flashlight. Empty. Then she noticed something near the fireplace. A trail of dust disturbed across the wooden floor, as though something heavy had been dragged recently. The trail led directly toward the far wall, toward an enormous antique cupboard built into the paneling. Elena approached slowly. The cupboard looked older than the house itself. Dark oak, hand-carved, massive. She grabbed the brass handle and pulled. Locked. Another thunderclap shook the house, and for one brief second, she heard a sound behind the cupboard. Not movement, not scratching, breathing. Elena stepped backward instantly. Every hair on her arms rose. "Nope," she whispered. "Absolutely not." She turned away quickly and hurried upstairs, refusing to look back. But just before reaching the staircase, a voice spoke softly behind her. Female, calm, almost sad. "Please." Elena froze completely. The voice came again, barely above a whisper. "Open it." She spun around. The living room stood empty. No one there. Only darkness, and the towering cupboard waiting silently against the wall. Morning brought sunlight, and with it, embarrassment. Elena stood in the kitchen making coffee, while replaying the previous night in her head. A voice? Seriously? She blamed stress, and isolation, and probably the terrible canned soup. Still, she couldn't stop thinking about the cupboard. By noon, curiosity defeated common sense. She searched the entire house until she finally found an old ring of keys hanging inside a utility closet. There were at least 20 keys, most rusted beyond use. Elena carried them downstairs. The cupboard stood exactly where she remembered, silent, immovable, waiting. "Let's get this over with," she muttered. The third key fit. The lock clicked open loudly. Elena hesitated, then slowly pulled the doors apart. Dust burst outward. Inside were shelves filled with ordinary junk. Books, candles, broken dishes. Nothing terrifying. She exhaled in relief. "See? You're losing your mind." But as she began removing the shelves one by one, something felt wrong. The cupboard was too deep, far deeper than the dimensions should allow. She knocked lightly against the back panel. Hollow. Her eyes narrowed. No way. Excitement replaced fear instantly. Using a screwdriver, she pried against the wooden backing carefully. The panel shifted, then popped loose. Behind it was darkness, and a narrow hidden passage inside the wall. Elena stared in disbelief. "Oh my God!" Her flashlight beam shook as she pointed it inward. The passage was barely wide enough to crawl through. Stone walls, old beams, and at the very end, a metal box. Small, black, waiting. Her pulse thundered. Every horror movie instinct screamed at her to stop. Instead, she crawled forward, slowly. Dust coated her hands and knees. The air smelled stale and ancient. When she finally reached the box, she realized something even stranger. It wasn't locked, almost as if someone wanted it found. Elena lifted the lid carefully. Inside were dozens of yellowed letters tied together with faded red ribbon, a silver key, and beneath them, a photograph, this one newer than the first. The same dark-haired woman stood beside a little girl around 8 years old, both smiling, both familiar, too familiar. Elena's stomach tightened, because the little girl in the picture was her, and written beneath the image in shaky ink were 6 words that changed everything forever. You were never supposed to return. Elena dropped the photograph. It slipped from her fingers and landed face up in the dust. Her flashlight beam shook violently across the tiny hidden passage. No! The word escaped her mouth automatically. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. She snatched the picture again and stared harder, as if concentration alone could change what she was seeing. But the image remained the same. The little girl standing beside the dark-haired woman had Elena's eyes, Elena's smile, even the tiny scar near her eyebrow from falling off a bicycle at age 7. Her chest tightened painfully. How is this here? Her voice echoed weakly through the narrow tunnel. The date, written at the bottom, made it worse. 26 years earlier, long before the house had ever appeared in her life. Or so she thought. A sudden dizziness forced her to brace against the wall. Fragments of memory flickered through her mind unexpectedly. Rain against windows. A piano somewhere distant. A woman humming softly. Then, darkness. Elena inhaled sharply. What is happening to me? She grabbed the letters quickly and backed out of the passage, nearly stumbling in panic once she returned to the living room. The house suddenly felt different now. Smaller, closer, like the walls themselves were listening. For nearly an hour, Elena sat frozen at the dining table staring at the stack of letters. She didn't want to open them, because once she did, everything would change. And deep down, she already knew that somehow. Finally, she untied the faded ribbon. The first envelope crackled in her hands. No stamp, no address, only one name written carefully across the front. Eleanor, not Elena. Eleanor. Her breath caught. No one had called her that since childhood, not since her mother died. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded the letter. The handwriting was elegant but rushed. If you are reading this, then it means the house chose correctly. And if the house chose correctly, then you are finally home. Elena stopped breathing for a second. The room felt colder instantly. She continued reading. I know they told you your mother abandoned you. That was the lie they needed you to believe. The truth is far worse. Elena's heart slammed against her ribs. Her entire life, she had believed her mother disappeared willingly, left one night, and never returned. That was the official story. Her father repeated it constantly. She didn't want responsibility. She wasn't stable. She walked away. Eventually, Elena stopped asking questions. Children always do. But now, her hands tightened around the paper. The letter continued. Your mother never left you. She was taken from this house. A loud bang upstairs interrupted the silence. Elena jumped violently. The sound echoed through the ceiling like something heavy had fallen. For several seconds, she sat frozen, listening. Nothing followed, but the fear had returned now. Strong, alive, she glanced toward the staircase. Darkness waited above. Then slowly, she looked back down at the letter. The next pages revealed pieces of story Elena could barely process. The woman writing the letters identified herself as Margaret Vale, the same woman from the photographs. According to the pages, Margaret had once owned the estate decades earlier, but more importantly, Margaret claimed to be Elena's grandmother. Elena leaned back slowly. No, her grandmother died before she was born. That's what she'd always been told. Another lie. Her stomach twisted. The letter explained that Elena's mother, Clara, had grown up inside the house. And according to Margaret, Clara had discovered something hidden beneath the estate shortly before vanishing. Something valuable enough that powerful people became desperate to control it. Elena read faster now. Every sentence pulled her deeper. Your mother wanted to expose them. That was her mistake. The people involved were wealthy, connected, dangerous. When Clara refused to stay silent, they came for her. Elena's mouth went dry. The next line nearly stopped her heart. One of them was your father. The paper slipped slightly in her grasp. No. Her father? The quiet insurance salesman who barely raised his voice? Impossible. Yet suddenly memories returned differently now. The constant moving. His anger whenever Elena mentioned her mother. The locked office she was never allowed to enter. And the night he burned every photograph containing Clara. At the time, Elena was too young to understand. Now, her entire childhood suddenly felt manufactured. Another loud noise came from upstairs, this time unmistakable. Footsteps, slow, measured, directly above her. Elena stood instantly. Who's there? Silence. Then another step. Creak. Her pulse exploded. Someone was definitely inside the house. She grabbed the fireplace poker beside the hearth and moved cautiously toward the staircase. The footsteps stopped immediately, as if whoever was upstairs had heard her. Every instinct screamed at her to leave the house. Call the police. Drive away. But the letters had changed something. Fear was no longer stronger than curiosity. She climbed slowly, one step at a time. The second-floor hallway stretched ahead in silence. Closed doors lined both sides. Dust floated through pale beams of afternoon light. Hello? Nothing. Then a door at the far end creaked open by itself. Elena froze. The room beyond was dark, completely black, and from somewhere inside, a piano note echoed softly. One single key. Her breath caught instantly, because she recognized the melody. A lullaby, one her mother used to hum when Elena was very small. A song she hadn't heard in over 20 years. No! The fireplace poker slipped slightly in her sweaty grip. She moved toward the room slowly. Every floorboard groaned beneath her. The air became colder with every step. When she finally reached the doorway, she pushed it open wider. Dust covered everything inside. An old bedroom, faded floral wallpaper, broken vanity mirror, rotting curtains swaying gently despite the closed windows, and in the corner, a piano, its keys yellow with age. Elena approached carefully. The instrument looked untouched for decades, yet one key still moved slowly downward, as if someone had pressed it moments earlier. She stared at it in horror, then noticed something sitting atop the piano bench, a small silver necklace. Her necklace, the one she lost at age 9. Elena grabbed it instantly, backing away. How is this possible? The chain trembled in her hands. She remembered losing it during one of the many arguments between her parents. Her father insisted she had misplaced it, but now it sat here, inside this house, waiting. Suddenly, the bedroom door slammed shut behind her. Elena screamed. The entire room shook violently for one terrifying second. Then silence. Complete silence. Her chest heaved. Okay, she whispered shakily. Okay, no more. She rushed toward the door and yanked it open. The hallway outside was empty again, but something had changed. At the far end of the corridor, a woman stood watching her. Tall, dark-haired, cream-colored coat. The exact same woman from the photographs. Margaret. Elena's blood turned to ice. The woman didn't move, didn't blink, just stared sadly across the hallway. Elena, she said softly. The voice sounded distant, almost echoing underwater. You don't have much time. Then the lights flickered, and she vanished. That night, Elena couldn't leave. Not because she didn't want to, because her car wouldn't start. The engine died repeatedly no matter what she tried. By midnight, heavy fog swallowed the road completely anyway, so she stayed, alone, with the letters, and the growing certainty that everything she knew about her life had been a carefully constructed lie. She sat beside the fireplace reading until her eyes hurt. The final letters became increasingly frantic. Margaret described hidden documents, bank accounts, evidence, a network of influential people laundering millions through illegal property deals tied to the town decades earlier, including judges, police officials, business owners, and Elena's father had apparently handled the financial records. But Clara discovered everything accidentally and threatened to expose them. Then she disappeared. Officially, authorities ruled it voluntary abandonment. Margaret clearly believed otherwise. The final page contained only one sentence. The proof still exists beneath the house. Elena stared at the words for a long time. Beneath the house, another secret, another hidden truth. Thunder rolled outside again, and suddenly, 3 loud knocks at the front door downstairs. Elena nearly dropped the papers. Knock, knock, knock. At midnight, in the middle of nowhere, every muscle in her body tightened. Another knock came, slower this time. She grabbed the fireplace poker again and moved carefully downstairs. The knocking stopped before she reached the foyer. Silence swallowed the house. Elena, the voice came from outside. Male, old, you need to leave. Her breath caught. She approached the door cautiously but didn't open it. Who are you? A long pause followed. Then, the people who owned this house before you. The man's voice trembled slightly. They're starting to realize you came back. Cold spread through Elena's chest. What are you talking about? Another silence. Then the man said something that made her blood freeze, completely. Your mother tried to warn them too. Elena yanked the door open instantly, but the porch outside was empty. No man, no footprints, nothing except thick rolling fog. Then she noticed it, a small object sitting directly at the doorstep, an old brass key, and attached to it was a tag with 3 handwritten words. For the basement. Elena stared at the brass key for nearly a full minute before touching it. The fog curled across the porch like pale smoke. The night air felt unnaturally cold. And somewhere beyond the dead trees surrounding the estate, a dog barked once, then abruptly stopped. Her instinct screamed at her to throw the key away. Instead, she picked it up. The metal was freezing in her palm. For the basement, she whispered. The words on the tag suddenly felt heavier than iron, because she had already searched the house twice, and there was no basement. At least none she had found. She locked the front door carefully and returned inside. Every sound now felt amplified. The ticking grandfather clock, the whispering wind against old windows, the constant creaking deep inside the walls. The house no longer felt abandoned. It felt awake. Elena carried the letters, flashlight, and brass key into the kitchen and spread everything across the table. Her eyes returned to Margaret's final sentence. The proof still exists beneath the house. Beneath, not inside, not behind. Beneath, she stood abruptly. There has to be another entrance. For the next hour, Elena searched every room again. Closets, hallways, storage rooms, under staircases. Nothing. Until finally, she noticed something strange in the dining room. One section of the wooden floor looked newer than the rest. Not new exactly, but repaired, carefully concealed. Her pulse quickened. She knelt and brushed away layers of dust. There, a narrow metal ring embedded into the floorboards, hidden beneath an old rug. Oh my God! She wrapped both hands around the ring and pulled hard. At first, nothing moved. Then, crack! The wooden panel lifted upward slowly. A blast of cold air rushed out from below. Elena coughed immediately. The smell rising from the darkness beneath was ancient. Wet stone, rust, decay. A narrow staircase disappeared underground. And at the bottom, darkness thick as ink. Her heartbeat pounded so loudly she could hear it. This is insane, she whispered. Then she grabbed the flashlight and descended anyway. The basement was enormous, far larger than the house above suggested possible. Stone walls stretched endlessly into shadow. Old pipes lined the ceiling. Dust covered everything. But what shocked Elena most was that it wasn't empty. Rows of filing cabinets filled the underground chamber. Boxes stacked floor to ceiling. Shelves overflowing with documents. It looked less like a basement and more like a forgotten archive, a hidden operation. She stepped deeper inside slowly. Her flashlight beam moved across faded labels, property deeds, financial ledgers, photographs, newspaper clippings, some dated nearly 40 years earlier. Margaret hadn't lied. Proof. Enough proof to destroy lives. Then Elena noticed something else. A desk in the center of the room, and sitting atop it, a tape recorder. Old-fashioned, dusty, but intact. Beside it rested a single cassette tape labeled, "For Eleanor." Her throat tightened. She pressed play. Static crackled loudly. Then a woman's voice filled the basement. Soft, shaking. Her mother. Elena, if you're hearing this, then something happened to me. Elena stopped breathing. Tears instantly filled her eyes. It was the first time she had heard her mother's voice since childhood. You were never abandoned, Clara continued. I need you to believe that. Elena covered her mouth. The recording trembled with background noises. Doors slamming somewhere distant. Hurried footsteps. Rain. I found records hidden beneath the estate, Clara said quickly. Names. Payments. Illegal land seizures. Missing people. They used this house to move money and silence anyone who fought them. Elena's pulse hammered violently now. And your father, Clara's voice cracked painfully. He helped them. Elena closed her eyes. Even hearing it directly still hurt. I tried to take the evidence to authorities, Clara continued. But too many people were involved. Judges, police, wealthy investors. Everyone protected each other. A loud banging noise suddenly erupted somewhere in the background of the recording. Clara gasped. If they find this tape, they'll destroy everything. Another bang. Closer now. Then Clara said the words Elena would never forget. If I disappear, it means they finally came. The tape cut abruptly into static. Elena stood frozen. Tears rolled silently down her face. For years, she believed her mother abandoned her willingly. And all along, she had been trying to protect her. A sudden noise behind Elena shattered the silence. Footsteps. Real footsteps. Directly upstairs. Elena spun instantly, flashlight shaking. Someone had entered the house. The footsteps moved slowly across the ceiling overhead. Heavy, deliberate, not imagination this time. Someone was definitely there. Elena switched off the flashlight immediately. Darkness swallowed the basement. Her breathing became shallow. The footsteps stopped. Then a male voice echoed faintly from above. Search everything. Another voice answered. She's here somewhere. Elena's blood ran cold. Multiple people. She backed deeper into the basement silently. A flashlight beam suddenly appeared at the top of the basement stairs. Someone had found the entrance. Elena Ward, a man shouted upstairs. We just want to talk. She recognized the voice instantly. Victor Hale, her father's former business partner. One of the men mentioned repeatedly in Margaret's letters. Panic surged through her chest. How did they find her? Then realization struck. The house deed. Of course. The moment she bought the property. They knew. The flashlight beam moved slowly downward now. One of them was descending the stairs. Elena looked desperately around the basement. There had to be another exit. Another way out. Her flashlight swept across the back wall. And stopped. A narrow iron door partially hidden behind shelves. She ran toward it quietly and tried the brass key. Click. It opened immediately. She slipped through and shut it behind her just as footsteps entered the basement chamber. Elena? Victor called calmly. You don't understand what you're involved in. She held her breath in darkness. Through the thin door, she heard cabinets opening, boxes crashing, paper scattering. They found the archive, another man shouted. Destroy it all. Elena's stomach dropped. No, the evidence. The room beyond the iron door turned out to be a tunnel. Long, narrow, ancient stones stretching endlessly underground. She hurried forward blindly, while behind her the basement erupted into chaos. Men shouting, furniture breaking. Then, fire. Smoke suddenly poured beneath the iron door. They're burning the house. Elena whispered in horror. The tunnel sloped upward gradually. She ran faster. Her lungs burned. The smoke thickened behind her. Then finally, moonlight appeared ahead. She burst out through a hidden opening near the cliffside behind the estate and collapsed onto wet grass, coughing violently. The house stood above her against the night sky. Flames consumed the lower windows already. Black smoke twisted upward into storm clouds. And silhouetted against the fire, someone stood in the second-floor window. A woman, cream-colored coat. Margaret, watching silently. Then the flames swallowed the room. Sirens arrived nearly 20 minutes later. But by then, the men were gone. So was most of the house. Elena sat wrapped in a blanket beside an ambulance while firefighters battled the blaze. Rain finally began falling again. Heavy, cold. A police officer approached carefully. "Miss Ward." She looked up slowly. "We searched the property," the officer said. "There's no sign anyone else was inside." Elena almost laughed. Of course. No proof. No witnesses. The perfect story. Just like before. Then the officer handed her something sealed inside a clear evidence bag. "We found this outside near the rear cliff path." Elena stared at it. A photograph. Untouched by fire. The same image of her and Margaret standing together as child and grandmother. Except now she noticed something she had missed before. Someone else stood partially visible in the background. A woman smiling warmly beside them. Clara, her mother, alive when the picture was taken. And written across the back in fresh ink, not faded this time, were 8 chilling words. They never found what was underneath. Elena's heartbeat slowed. Fresh ink, not old. Someone had written this recently, very recently, which meant only one thing. Her mother might still be alive. The officer frowned slightly. "Miss Ward, are you all right?" Elena looked back toward the burning ruins of the estate. The fire reflected in her eyes now. Fear was gone. Something else had replaced it. Purpose. "No," she said quietly. Then she tightened her grip on the photograph. "But I think I finally know where to begin."